All right, well, let's do it. People are coming in, but that's all right. Let's roll. We got a lot to talk about. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another CI Chit Chat. Um, Variety of different things going on here today, but setting the stage, as always, if anyone is new, we do these chit chats every just about every Tuesday at 7:45, talking about CI, which is carbon intensity. Talking about it because our carbon intensity or our carbon footprint on our farms is part of biofuels carbon footprint or the footprint of whatever your crop is going into. But biofuel is a really big deal because of the 45Z tax credit and lots going on within that space. Lot of variety of updates to share, things that are happening. Um, Things are really exciting. Things are really moving. Let's see. Overall in DC, to maybe set the stage just a little bit, and a couple other key things before I go into recent 45Z updates. Key stuff in DC, of course, they are on their August recess right now. So Congress, done for now, background home and recessed. So things are a little bit quieter in DC, which really means we can really start kind of helping out the administration, folks at DOE, USDA, Treasury. So a lot of those kind of things going on here now to make sure that the rules are getting put together correctly, and that progress is being made on the details of the 45Z credit. I think over the last, multiple months, we've seen just a lot of uncertainty. Uncertainty, obviously, out here on the farm, uncertainty across the country, uncertainty around the world of different things that's going on, especially as Trump is really going a million mile an hour. There's new stuff multiple times a day, it seems. Things are really going fast. Especially folks at Treasury that are supposed to write the 45Z rules, they've mostly had to kind of stop and wait and make sure that 45Z was actually going to happen. And obviously, they've been busy doing things with tariffs and everything else that's going on. But now that we got Big Beautiful Bill passed, 45Z is in there and extended till 2029. Now we're seeing a lot of movement happen at the administration. And I know that between January 20th and July 3rd, there wasn't a whole lot of movement going on with 45Z. Because they didn't know if it was going to stay around. They didn't know what Congress was going to do as they were cutting a lot of the Inflation Reduction Act programs. So I know they were mostly sitting still. And I don't blame them. I mean, with all the uncertainty and everything else going on, and they're trying to get people appointed and trying to get folks onboarded and in place, transitions take a little while. So there wasn't a whole lot going on. And obviously, we had to kind of hunker down and see what was going to happen as well. However, since the Big Beautiful Bill got passed on July 4th, now it's just been, in my mind, I feel like it's been light speed efforts coming out of the administration, things happening, and really moving fast. A couple things to point out there. I think since the last time we had a chit chat, a couple weeks ago, the IRS came out with their rule that they are increasing the value of the 45Z credit by about 6%, uh, as they are accounting for inflation or adjusting for inflation, they call it. They specifically named 45Z and they adjusted a couple other programs as well, kind of within the same rules. But 45Z specifically, they said we're going to increase the maximum credit value from $1 to $1.06. And like I said, increasing for inflation. Now, the 6% increase, not that big of a deal, especially on the farm, not that big of a deal. But the really important piece there being it's the Trump Department of Treasury, the IRS, making an adjustment on 2025 45Z credits, meaning taxes to be filed for calendar year 2025, where they're anticipating ethanol plants getting 45Z credit. And I know firsthand that there's multiple ethanol plants that are going to be in position to pursue these 45Z credits. And I think a lot of other plants need to start getting some baby step effort going forward. There's, in my opinion, too many plants sitting doing nothing. And there's a lot that can be done without spending too much time and definitely without spending any money, just to have the conversations, figure out the approach to gathering data, getting CI scores ran, and getting in position to maximize these credits. yeah, it got extended, but still, we only have a couple of years to maximize this thing. And I think if we want to show that we're thankful to our elected officials and utilizing these programs and driving the efforts that they want to see, which is obviously decarbonizing our biofuel industry and decarbonizing agriculture, um, and making it more resilient, more sustainable, and investing in American energy. If we want to see that through, we got to make sure that we hit the ground running here. So, a lot of efforts that can be done, a lot of conversation that we are having with biofuel producers, and want to continue to have more of those if anyone is wanting to dig in further into how to maximize the credit. But like I said, IRS is saying we're ready for 40. We anticipate we're going to have 45Z for 2025. It is the law of the land right now. There is a 45Z CF GREET model. There is some of the Biden era initial rules, but obviously with IRS saying, "Hey, we're increasing the value of the credit." To me, good indication that there's other efforts going on as well. They haven't forgotten about us, and for them to make a ruling on 45Z within what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of 45Z being locked in and part of the big beautiful bill, for them to make a ruling that fast, I think that's a really good indication. That makes me excited that things are happening. So I didn't think it would happen that fast. But then what was even more surprising is a week after that, so it would have been a week ago Thursday, the Department of Energy put out a notice of intent. I've got it pulled up here. It's called the Notice of Intent to Publish the 45Z Emissions Value Request Process, meaning the Department of Energy is going to publish a process where the biofuel producer can request their emissions value, aka a CI score, but their emissions value and some of the terminology that we're seeing coming out of the Trump administration, that I think they're changing some of the terms, changing some of the language to kind of distance themselves from the Biden administration. And that's why it's a, emissions value request versus a CI score request or a greenhouse gas, request or something like that. So I think they're just changing some of the terminology slightly, but overall, what it ends up being is the Department of Energy is going to publish a process to which a biofuel producer can submit data and submit an application to the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy will review the data, review the application, and issue the final CI score back to the biofuel producer, which then that biofuel producer can take and report to their CPA firm and ultimately to the IRS. So, why this is important? Previously, my understanding and everyone that I talked to, the understanding was going to be a biofuel producer pulls together all of their data to calculate their CI score and likely work with a consulting company, work with softwares like the Topsoil tool that we developed here at Continuum to bring in the farmer data. But these biofuel producers gather all this data, get their CI scores put together, and submit that data to a third party auditor like eco engineers that we work with on the farmer data. They gather all the data, submit it to a third party auditor who issues the verified CI certificate. And then that would go to the CPA firm and to the ethanol plant. This is just, or into the IRS. This is just another step where the ethanol plant or a biofuel producer, they pull together all the data. They work with their consultants and third party auditors to get the reports put together. And then there's just an additional step where they would send it to the Department of Energy, get that report back, then send it over to the CPA firm and the Department of Treasury and the IRS. So it's just another layer, which I don't love that there's another potential layer of government to be involved in this 45Z thing, but it does create a tremendous amount of certainty and clarity and consistency, which I think is going to be really important as a biofuel producer looks to sell their 45Z credit in the secondary market for whatever credits they aren't able to utilize themselves. Very important that now you've got the DOE coming in saying, this is legit. Here's the score. I think that is tremendous movement forward to avoid potential risk, avoid potential fraud, lower potential costs and need for insurance, and just lower the worry of very sophisticated tax credit buyers. That DOE is coming in saying, we're going to standardize how the scores are ran. We're going to run it through us, and we will end up being kind of the authority in here to issue the CI scores. So, didn't see it coming, but I think hopefully, as long as the process is streamlined enough, it could really help this entire thing. So DOE just a week and a half ago said we're going to publish this process, and the biofuel producers, you'll have to gather the data, send it to us. They did not lay out a whole lot of details in the process besides that they want to see a feed study get ran, which is essentially a engineering report or engineering analysis of energy projects. It's not exactly what you probably would have thought the type of report that they would ask for. But I think that what's important is they say we're going to want components of a feed study. Usually, a feed study is very focused on the economics of a new engineering project, where this would really be around the processes that the biofuel producers using and the carbon intensity scores associated with those processes. Really, just gathering the data about how did you produce your fuel, so that way that information can be plugged into the GREET model, and you can actually calculate the CI score from that process, right? So um, I think it'll work out. I'm doing a ton of research and having conversations about these feed studies, and I think it brings about a tremendous opportunity. And what I mean by that is the Department of Energy, instead of publishing all the details saying, here's how it's going to be done, instead they said, hey, we think we're going to request, a feed study. Um, Give us public comment over the next 60 days. And they did open up a public comment period that's open till September 22nd. So there's a public comment period open right now where the DOE is saying, tell us kind of what this could look like to request data regarding a feed study, regarding your processes at the biofuel producer, and the ability to bring in the data so we can calculate your CI score. And it's very open-ended, which I think gives us a tremendous opportunity to say, here's the type of data we can collect at the ethanol plant. That's the scope one emissions. In the energy sector, that's scope two emissions, but also coming off the farm. Here's what's going on in scope three emissions. It's 50% or thereabouts of the equation. Here's how we can collect the data. Here's how we can get it third party verified. It really opens up an opportunity where instead of bureaucrats saying, here's the process, you go figure out how to follow it. I think we got an opportunity here to say, hey, here's what we can bring to the table. We've already proven it, and this is scalable, and this is cost effective. Hey, why don't you make the rules in alignment with this? And I just met with Jeff Cooper, the president of the Renewable Fuels Association, on Friday, and a couple of his top staffers, including guys in DC. And that was basically that was the consensus that we came to. Like they are being very open and asking for the industry to kind of help to form the path forward here and show them what to do, which I think is a huge opportunity for all of us to get our ducks in a row, show the DOE, here's not only an idea of how it could be done, but we're already doing it. And we can do this at scale. We can do it cost effectively. Here you go. Here's the playbook. Build it based on this. So we are absolutely going to pursue that, showing, hey, here's how we can actually do this. And Continuum, of course, doesn't focus on the CI scoring at the ethanol plant, but or the biofuel producer, but we can bring in all of this data coming off the farm, which again is 50% of the equation, and it has been largely ignored up to this point. And now we've got a window where we can show the Department of Energy, here's how we can actually do this. And I think that's just tremendous, tremendous opportunity. We have got to rally the troops here behind all that. So anyone that wants to discuss that further, happy to. These studies are very new to me. I didn't grow up in this space. I'm not an engineer, so I'm having to learn a lot. But I've got the right resources around us and people that really understand this. So very confident that things are moving in the right direction. My intent would be that we'll put together our public comments. We'll be very public in sharing those. We'll put together here is basically showing here's what we propose that the DOE ends up writing for the rules, and other folks can jump on board with that, kind of copy our process or tag team onto our process. We will our whole intent in this is we know how to get this stuff verified. We developed the MRV process to measure, report, and verify the farmer CI certificates. We know how to do this and create it at scale and for a couple cents a bushel. And we'll license that process out that others can tap into it as well and end up lowering the cost and creating consistency for everybody. So that's really the intent from our side. Um, but the um, the um, lots to keep working on through this public comment. But I do think that this is a huge move, obviously, in the right direction, where we can, really show that we're ready for this. And I think the Renewable Fuel Association, hopefully corn growers, those kind of groups, they've got a key role to play here in being able to, um, being able to really highlight our efforts that are going on. So, a couple of things along those same lines. Um, we're seeing so the chatter across a lot of ethanol plants is kind of all over the place, and wanted to address that. I know there's plenty of you that are farmers that are talking with your ethanol plant and not really getting much response, and maybe you're involved in your ethanol plant and you guys are just kind of spinning your wheels and not really sure what to say. I get it. We don't have rules yet. We don't know how the farmer piece is going to be included. We don't know how this is going to shape up. But I do think that there are baby steps that can be moved forward. And one of those companies that is really doing a great job at that is Siouxland Energy. And Siouxland would just put out a nice little quote from their CEO the other day, where they're saying, "Hey, we don't know yet. We can't promise anything. There's no money. We're not making any money in this. We don't know what to tell you, farmers, as to making money. However, we know it's going to take data. Go and get your CI score using Topsoil. Start getting your data organized. And Topsoil is a platform where you can get that done. So I think that type of message of just understand your CI score. It takes a couple minutes and it's free and get your data organized so that you can undergo these audits or submit that data over that we're going to need for these feed studies. And by and large, the ethanol plants I'm talking to are saying, hey, if there's an opportunity to include the farmers in this and utilize their sustainable farming practices, yeah, we want to do that. There's very few that say, no, like we're not going to include the farmers. I think that is just very short-sighted mindset. And just to be a no instantly, I just think really is going to stifle innovation. We got an opportunity here to create this collaboration and strengthen the collaboration between a biofuel producer and the farmer that I think can, really obviously it's going to potentially drive a tremendous amount more money to middle America, to that biofuel producer, and some of that money being passed along to the farmers. But instead of biofuel producers just right off the bat saying, nah, we don't have rules, nah, we're not going to do anything. Instead, we can say, hey, we're monitoring it. We don't know yet. So, farmer, we can't promise you anything. This may be a gigantic nothing burger. However, in order to be in position to help us out here, it's going to take data. And obviously, that's what I've been preaching for years. It continues to be the thing that I don't know if anybody's going to make any money in this, but I guarantee your money will be zero if you don't have any data, because that's what it takes to get a CI score. And obviously now the Department of Energy is jumping in saying we're going to review all the data. It's going to have to be to our standards, and then we're going to issue you the final CI score. So that all takes data. All takes data. So that's really really the key there. Um, um, quick response in the Q&A here. Okay. Let's see. I think other than that, I have been getting a lot of questions about just from some of our farmers, especially large farmers, asking about, hey, what should I be thinking about this fall? And I think that's a great question as we are Hopefully, a lot of you getting into a little bit of a slower period here as spraying and spring and summer work getting wrapped up, and as we're preparing for harvest and for fall work, we need to be thinking about 2026. Again, obviously, as we continue to say, I don't know how all the final rules are going to shape up or how the farmer piece is going to be included. Obviously, we know that that is the intent of the administration, that is the intent of Congress to have farmers included. Um, we're a huge part of the equation here in this biofuel carbon intensity scoring. And but I don't know exactly what model is going to be utilized or exactly what practices are going to be included. However, as we look at okay, what practices would be included if the DOE is going to have the farmer piece included here, which is basically what they're asking us, like, show us what the feed study would look like, give us your public comments, show us how this can be done. Again, let's do it. Let's take advantage of this. But um, as they are saying, okay, all right, we're going to include some farming practices. I think as we've looked at the 40B program, as we've looked at historical um, draft guidance and whatnot about this, there's consistency that the cover crop is always included as practice. Reducing tillage is always included as a practice. The details of it, whether it be a reduced till and a no till, or just basically a reduced till, um, we don't know exactly, uh, to what extent, but we know cover cropping, reducing tillage, there's continue to be consistent practices that is being requested by the government to be able to, expand your opportunity in these programs. Clearly, I don't think that those practices are going to change at all under this administration and under this USDA. Who would know is involved here. So if there's any practices that I would like, if the farmer's going to be included, the two practices that are surely going to be included would be reduced tillage and adding cover crop. So as we think about that, I think you got to be thinking about how do you get cover crop on as many acres as you can here this fall? How do you do it as cost effectively as you can, as low risk as you can? If you're new to these things, make sure that you're getting good support. Make sure that you're getting good help to not, chase this carrot and end up hurting yourself from a yield perspective. You absolutely can adopt these practices and even in year one, not go backwards in terms of yield and profitability. There are absolutely ways to be able to do this. You can absolutely go in year one and make these practices work for you. It just takes making sure that you go about it the right way and get good advice. So, as we're thinking about this fall, I do think we got to be thinking about planting cover crops. I think we got to be looking at some of the precedent from guidance that's come out before. And that guidance being, all right, cover crop. Yep, we want to incentivize that. Just follow your local NRCS guidelines. So be looking at the EQIP and CSP guidelines. We know that USDA is involved here, uh, helping behind the scenes on 45Z. Makes sense to me that the precedent that was set in the 40B guidance and precedent set in the Biden USDA guidance makes sense that would remain where they're saying there's not a one size fits all. Do this to check the cover crop box. Look at your local NRCS guidelines. So abide by those in regards to planting rate and date and that kind of thing, species selection, that kind of thing. So the unknowns in this, in regards to what practices are really going to move the needle and what should we be thinking about this fall, would be is manure going to be included? We sure hope so, but I don't know for certain. Are stabilizers or biologicals going to be specifically called out? I don't know yet. I think it's okay to just have it be based on the GREET feedstock calculator, where it's based on the amount of fertilizer that you use and you, of course, can reduce the amount of synthetic fertilizer by using stabilizers and biologicals. So rather than get a credit for that specific checkbox of utilizing the tool, you get a outcome based, reduction in your CI based on reducing your carbon, based on reducing your fertilizer usage and improving your yield, and therefore you get an improved CI score. So it's the outcome created by adopting the biological, the stabilizer, the outcome being better yield and less fertilizer, and that drives your CI. So I don't know if it'll be, check the box on the practices like what we've seen before, or more in line with the actual GREET, the GREET feedstock calculator as is today. Plug in your actual fertilizer practices and your actual yield, and that gets you the score. But manure kind of up in the air, but if, if it's included historically, it's moved the needle a lot in terms of your CI score. So if you can apply manure, I think it's something you got to be thinking about here this fall, to get manure out there and get it across as many of your acres as you can. And then be thinking about, just overall reducing synthetic fertilizer, really optimizing the fertilizer that you're putting on, because yield is important. We don't want to give up yield. Obviously, we want to be productive. We want to be profitable here and just good old-fashioned agronomy, but we need to be thinking about optimizing the fertility inputs, to gain the yield outcome that we want. And that's going to lead to a better CI score. So happy to discuss that more. We're taking more questions as we are, getting into decision making here for the fall. But 45Z is locked in. It's here. Hopefully, we get some more clarity in some of these final rules after the September 22 public comment period ends. Um, but in the meantime, we know that this is going to happen fast. It's going to be a short turnaround time and short window between rules coming out and tax filing in April. Um, it's going to be a lot of work to gather the data and get things turned around in that time. So that's where we're starting now. Start gathering the data now. Get yourself in position to capitalize. And I think there's a lot of alternative programs that are continuing to develop also. Very interesting conversations going on my side of continuing to be opportunities outside of 45Z, for our farmers that are, working with us and our programs where we're helping you gather data. We also have a partner doing research and development tax credits for you for no additional fee. They just get a success fee at the end. But R&D tax credits can be a huge opportunity to generate quicker short-term ROI and more of a straightforward, like it's kind of a hedge. We can get R&D credits. We also just last week signed a deal with a partner that's going to help our farmers do equip, CSP, and other cost share programs, or other grant programs. So all of our farmers, we connect with both of those companies to do R&D credits and to look at the grants that would be available for you, or cost share that'd be available. Multiple ways to hedge here and make sure that there's money being driven back to your farm, while at the same time we got to collect the data and get in position to monetize it. So things happening. I'm excited for it. More coming here to report on the feed study side of things. Happy to discuss more, especially if anybody has experience in putting together feed studies or have seen some of this being done in the past. We're going to be all for collaborating there and making sure that there is a kind of a consistent, cohesive message that is going out regarding how the biofuel industry can capitalize here. So anyway, all right, I got to jump. Good stuff here though. Happy to take additional questions, and we're planning on. I don't think we're going to be on next week. I got to go to Colorado, but week after we'll plan on being back. But we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll see if we have another chit chat next Tuesday. But things are happening. Let's make it happen, and don't waste this opportunity. We got a huge gift ahead of us here, and let's capitalize on this thing. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great day, great rest of the week. Talk to you soon.